Our movie kicks off with a former Special Forces soldier named Levon. Now, Levon doesn't exactly live the glamorous life. He actually wakes up inside his car, which clearly doubles as his home. He climbs out, unlocks the construction site where he works, and we learn that Levon is basically the right-hand man for his boss at this contracting company. The workers really like him, too. He's not just the tough military type. He's earned their respect. One of them even brings him breakfast, specially cooked by his wife just for Levon. He thanks him warmly, then gathers everyone around to remind them they've got a heavy workload today. He promises that if they finish on time, he'll make sure they get a nice bonus. Motivated, the crew heads off while Levon walks into the office. Inside, he joins Rick, Carla, and Joe, the couple who own the company, along with their daughter Jenny, who handles the accounts. The way they talk to Levon makes it clear they see him as more than an employee. He's practically family. Jenny, meanwhile, is trying to get her dad's credit card so she can go out with friends later that night. Joe tries to play the strict dad, telling her not to spend too much, but in the end, he gives in. Levon just smiles, watching the little family moment. But things quickly take a turn. Levon spots a shady car pulling up outside, and a group of thugs step out. They immediately start roughing up one of the workers, the same guy who brought Levon breakfast. Levon steps in calmly, trying to defuse the situation, but one of the guys mouths off at him, basically telling him to back off. Bad idea. Levon snaps, hurling a handful of nails, and then unleashing some serious military-grade fighting skills. It's quick, brutal, and messy. When it's over, the worker is shaken, but Levon reassures him and gets back to business as if nothing happened. That's when Jenny approaches him. Turns out she saw the fight. She asks if he used to be in the Navy, because the way he moved looked like professional combat training. She explains her grandfather was also in the military, and she recognized some of the same moves. Curious, she even asks Levon to teach her a few self-defense tricks. Levon brushes her off, warning her not to mention what she saw to her parents. She agrees, but then hands him some homemade food her grandmother made just for him. She knows Levon lives alone and doesn't really have anyone to cook for him. Levon accepts the food and asks her to thank her grandmother. After work, Levon heads out to see his daughter, Mary. But when he arrives, he finds her grandfather, Gordon, has thrown a party that conveniently clashes with Levon's pickup time. It's a cheap trick to stop Mary from going with her dad. But Mary doesn't care. She runs straight to Levon, jumps into his arms, and insists on going with him. That doesn't sit well with Gordon, who steps in to insult Levon, accusing him of being reckless and violent, the kind of man no kid should be around. He even brings up Levon's wife, saying she paid the ultimate price for his chaotic lifestyle. It's clear Gordon is deliberately trying to provoke him, hoping Levon will lash out so he can use it in court to take custody of Mary. But Levon holds his temper. He tells Gordon he wasn't to blame for his wife's death, then walks away with his daughter. Later, Levon meets with his lawyer to talk about Gordon's constant meddling. The lawyer warns him that Gordon has an entire team of attorneys working non-stop to win full custody. Curious why Gordon hates Levon so much, the lawyer asks, and Levon admits Gordon blames him for his daughter's death. She had fallen into deep depression because Levon was always away for work, and in the end, she hurt herself. Levon carries the guilt, even though it wasn't his fault. The lawyer tries to convince Levon to settle things with Gordon because realistically, Gordon has a strong case, especially since Levon doesn't even have a permanent home. Without a stable place to live, the court will almost certainly side with Gordon. But Levon flat out refuses, saying he's not making peace with the man who's trying to take his daughter away. He throws money on the lawyer's desk, demanding he keep fighting the case, and storms out determined to find a housing solution as fast as possible. Meanwhile, night falls and Jenny goes out with her friends. They hit a bar, and when Jenny approaches the bartender, David, to ask for a table, he teases her. He says if she tells him her name, he'll give her one of the best tables in the place. Jenny laughs, gives him her name, and he points her to a prime spot. She heads back to join her friends, smiling. Meanwhile at the bar, that bartender David, yeah, the one who flirted with Jenny, turns out he's not just serving drinks. He secretly sends a message to a guy named Viper, who works for a human trafficking gang. As soon as Viper gets the message, he grabs his partner and rushes to the bar. That same night, one of Jenny's friends drinks way too much and gets sick. Jenny takes her to the bathroom, telling her she'll wait right outside until she's done. But the second Jenny steps out of the bathroom, Viper is waiting. He grabs her, covers her mouth, and drags her away. Just like that, she's gone. The next day, Carla and Joe meet Levon in a panic. They tell him Jenny never came home, and her friend said she vanished right after going to the restroom at the bar. Joe pleads with Levon to help find her, reminding him of his special forces background and his ability to handle dangerous situations like this. But Levon hesitates. He's desperate to keep custody of his daughter, and getting involved in something violent could ruin everything. Joe even offers him a big chunk of money, but Levon still refuses and walks away. Later, Levon goes to see his old friend Johnny, who lives out in the woods. Through their conversation, we learn that Levon once saved Johnny's life during a mission, but Johnny lost his eyesight in the process. Still, he's eternally grateful to Levon. When Levon tells him about Jenny's disappearance, it's clear he wants to help her. He cares about her like a daughter, but his fear of losing custody holds him back. Johnny tells him straight, some things are worth the risk, and if he really considers Jenny like family, then he has to step up. Encouraged, Levon returns to Joe, who is watching a video of Jenny playing the piano. Heartbroken, Joe tells Levon that Jenny once got a scholarship to study music, but she gave it up to stay and help her parents with the company. That hits Levon hard. He promises Joe that he'll bring her back, no matter what. From there, Levon gets to work. He retraces Jenny's steps the night she disappeared, starting at the bar. He spots David secretly selling drugs to customers and immediately suspects he's connected. Out back, Levon discovers the security camera wires have been cut. He searches the ground and finds a bead from Jenny's necklace, clear proof she struggled during the abduction. That night, David closes up the bar and heads home, unaware that Levon has already planted a tracker on his car. Levon sneaks inside David's place without him noticing and waits. When David finally sees him, Levon is holding a gun and quickly disarms him. He demands answers about Jenny, but David plays dumb, insisting he told the police everything and doesn't know more. Levon doesn't buy it. He drags David into the bathroom, shoves him into the tub, and forces his head under the running water until David finally cracks. Gasping for air, David warns him that the people who took Jenny are extremely dangerous, Russian mafia-level dangerous. He tells Levon to walk away before they kill him and his family. But Levon doesn't scare easily. He demands a name. Just then, two of David's buddies show up and call out to him. Panicked, David screams for help, and the men storm in guns blazing. They immediately kill David to silence him, but Levon fights back, taking them both down in brutal fashion. After the dust settles, Levon notices the tattoos on their bodies, confirming what David said. They're Russian mob. The next morning, Levon stays hidden nearby and watches as two more men arrive with their boss, a cold, ruthless guy named Folo. Furious at finding his men dead and the money gone, Folo orders his lieutenants, Danny and Vanko, to hunt down whoever did this. Levon notices a cleaning crew arrive soon after, basically mob associates in a fake sanitation truck, to scrub the crime scene and get rid of the bodies. Levon follows Folo and his men back to their house, parks nearby, and arms himself. Hiding among the trees, he watches Folo inside. He sees Folo abusing his wife, slapping her around before storming back into the house. Levon seizes the chance. He ambushes Folo, dumping hot coffee in his face and knocking him out cold. When Folo wakes up, he's tied to a chair at the edge of his pool, ropes biting into his wrists. Levon rips the tape off his mouth and leans in. Folo instantly recognizes who he's dealing with. Levon makes it clear he knows Folo is working with the Russian mafia, and he knows they're behind Jenny's kidnapping. Folo tries to intimidate him, warning that killing his men and stealing his money was a huge mistake, one that will bring hell down on Levon and his entire family. But Levon doesn't flinch. He smacks Folo across the face, reminding him that beating his wife was his real mistake. Then he throws the stolen cash back in his face, saying he doesn't want his dirty money, he only wants Jenny. He shows Folo her picture and demands to know where she's being held. Cornered, Folo admits that Jenny was snatched from the same bar where they moved their drugs. Folo completely loses it when Levon presses him for answers. He starts rambling about a guy named Dimi, switching into Russian mid-sentence, clearly thinking Levon won't understand. But Levon doesn't flinch. He tells Folo bluntly, hand over Jenny, and he'll let him live. Folo just gets angrier, hurling insults. Without warning, Levon cuts the rope, and Folo plunges into the pool. Once outside, Levon pulls out his phone and realizes he was recording the whole conversation. Using a translator, he finally figures out that Dimi is the one behind Jenny's disappearance. Soon after, the cleaning crew arrives again to remove Folo's body and wipe all evidence of the crime. Meanwhile, we meet Simon, Folo's older brother. Danny and Vanko, Folo's sons, tell him about what happened, and Simon is devastated over his brother's death. Watching the security footage of Levon taking Folo down, Simon is shocked, not just by Levon's skill, but by his sheer fearlessness. He immediately orders his sons to bring Levon to him alive. He wants revenge, personally. Back at Jenny's captivity, she's still trapped when Artie appears. She's in disguise, bringing Jenny food and new clothes. But there's a catch. She points a gun at Jenny, forcing her to change, making it clear that if Jenny doesn't comply, she'll die. It's a tense, terrifying moment. Levon isn't idle. He calls one of his old army buddies, now working in anti-trafficking. He asks about Dimi, and his friend quickly locates the bar where the gang is operating. That night, Levon heads straight there. Artie is watching the bar through surveillance cameras and notices Levon carrying a gun. She sends her partner, Chili, to check him out. When Chili sits with Levon, he lays out cash on the table, pretending to buy contraband. Chili realizes Levon isn't there to bust them. He's there to deal, and he's good at it. Levon gets taken to the gang leader, Dodge, and Artie tips him off, suspicious that Levon might be law enforcement. Dodge questions Levon about the gun, but Levon explains it's just for protection. He's carrying a lot of cash. Dodge then asks Levon to empty his pockets to prove he's not a cop. Levon refuses, ready to leave, but Dodge orders his men to attack. The fight is intense. Levon moves like a one-man army, taking down Dodge's men with brutal efficiency. Dodge himself barely escapes, yelling that Levon's combat skills are superior to any cops. Levon calmly admits he's a former soldier and reveals that he's now a major player in the drug trade in Chicago. He explains that he needs large quantities because his financier got arrested, so he has to stockpile monthly. Levon tests Dodge, giving him a price, which Dodge realizes is way higher than Chicago rates. That confirms Levon is the real deal, a serious operator. Dodge agrees to a drop-off at a cafe the next day. Levon shows up at the cafe on time, handing over cash to Artie and Chili. They give him a phone for the delivery instructions. Levon warns them not to betray him before walking away, then drives off. On the drive, Dodge calls to tell him the contraband is hidden under the chair he's sitting on, a clever trick to make sure no one is watching. They agree to talk the next day for the big delivery. Levon ends the call and, in a decisive move, dumps all the contraband into the river, cutting ties completely. That same night, Viper and Artie deliver Jenny to the buyer, a man named Garrett. When he opens the bag she's in, Jenny lashes out, hitting him. Garrett is angry and scolds Viper and Artie, telling them to take her to a safe house instead. Meanwhile, Levon is back in his modest apartment, pinning up all the photos and information he's collected on Jenny and her friends. He gets a call from Dodge, confirming the time and location for the next big drop. The next day, Levon arrives at a luxurious compound, noticing it's heavily guarded and full of armed men. Before meeting the gang leader, he's searched. To his shock, the gang leader turns out to be Demi, the very man behind Jenny's kidnapping. Levon hands over the payment for the contraband to Dodge. Demi asks for Levon's ID. Levon presents a highly professional fake ID from his army days, which Demi's men inspect and approve. Satisfied, Demi greets Levon warmly, hands him the bag of contraband, and promises they'll have plenty of business together. Levon takes the contraband to dispose of it safely in a bathroom, then returns to his apartment. He pores over the photos of Jenny and her friends from the bar and notices Viper watching Jenny closely in the background. Checking David's old phone, Levon confirms that David was in contact with Viper, meaning Viper was the one who kidnapped Jenny. He also finds that Viper was regularly at the same bar where Dodge's gang operates. That's his next stop, the bar. Levon stakes out the bar, waiting in his car, eyes sharp, scanning for any movement. Soon enough, Viper shows up, but Artie spots Levon through the surveillance cameras. She knows Danny and Vanko are hunting Levon, so she calls them immediately. Levon doesn't waste a second. The moment he sees them approaching, he jumps out of the car, snatches a motorcycle, and speeds off. Danny and Vanko chase him, opening fire, but Levon maneuvers like a pro, dodging every bullet. Just when it seems he's clear, he crashes into a police car and falls to the ground. To his shock, the cops hand him over to Danny and Vanko. They take his money, tie him up, and load him into their car. While he's trapped, he learns that Folo, the man Levon drowned, is actually their uncle. Levon mocks their ridiculous outfits and childish bravado, which only angers them more. They try to beat him, but Levon fights back with brutal force. In the chaos, Danny fires a gun at Levon, but Levon grabs his wrist and deflects the shot. The bullet hits the driver, blowing the car apart. The vehicle flips, and amidst the wreckage, Levon kills Danny and Vanko, then frees himself. He pushes the car into the river and escapes. Simon, witnessing the death of his nephews, is devastated. He immediately calls a meeting with other mafia bosses to strategize. Meanwhile, Viper and Artie are with Demi. Garrett, the guy who bought Jenny, is furious that she fought back, and Demi assures him that mistake won't happen again. He plans to take Jenny himself, and afterwards, they'll find another girl to hand over to Garrett. Back at Simon's meeting, one of the bosses suggests sending two elite fighters, Annister and Zifi, to track down Levon and punish him for killing Folo and his sons. They decide to bring Simon along since he likely knows Levon's location. After all, Levon was right in front of his bar the night of the incident. It's revealed that Demi is Folo's son and that he's been at odds with Levon for some time. Demi celebrates his father's death, but is shocked when he learns that Levon also killed Danny and Vanko, his cousins. He shows Simon a photo of Levon and his fake ID, confirming that Levon is being behind the chaos. Simon angrily admits that Levon killed his family in retaliation and walks away, setting the stage for the next confrontation. Annister and Zifi start gathering every bit of intel on Levon. The next day, Levon is driving when he gets a call from school. Mary isn't being picked up by her grandfather as usual. Sensing something's off, Levon rushes to the school and picks her up, planning to take her to her grandfather's house. On the way, Mary notices something strange and worries, heightening Levon's own sense of urgency. When they arrive, they find the house engulfed in flames. Levon rushes inside and finds Jordan tied up on the ground. He carries him out safely. Jordan, still in shock, blames Levon for the destruction, assuming it's all the Mafia's doing. But Mary quickly corrects him. Levon saved him, and in that moment, Jordan realizes his mistake and apologizes to Levon. Levon drives his daughter to his friend Johnny's place. There, he briefs Johnny on everything that's happened. He's finally closing in on Demi, who is heavily involved in human trafficking and almost certainly knows where Jenny is. Levon gears up, selecting weapons and equipment from Johnny's arsenal for the mission ahead. He drops off Mary with Johnny for safekeeping, making sure she's protected. Meanwhile, Viper and Artie are taking Jenny to a remote location to kill her. But Jenny fights back with incredible determination, kicking and scrambling until their car crashes into a tree. She breaks free and runs, only to find a police car waiting. It looks like salvation, but it's a trap. These officers are actually corrupt cops working for Jimmy's gang. They grab her and hand her back over to Viper and Artie, who are moments away from finishing her off. Just as things seem to spiral, Garrett calls Viper and Artie, saying he's changed his mind. He wants Jenny returned. At the same time, Levon arrives at the bar where Demi is hanging out. He hears Demi arguing with a woman nearby and moves in silently, taking out Demi's men one by one with precise, brutal efficiency. Demi grabs the girl he has with him, threatening to kill her, but Levon doesn't flinch. He fires a shot into Demi's hand, wounding him badly, and orders the girl to take the money and get out. Then Levon confronts Demi, showing him a photo of Jenny and demanding to know where she is. Demi claims he doesn't know, but he reveals the location of the exclusive club where he and his clients gather, the secret hub where the men buy the girls he kidnaps. Levon has Demi drive him there, so he can see the route. When they arrive, Levon forces Demi out of the car and interrogates him about his human trafficking operation. Demi coldly says it's all about the money. Levon blindsides him, then takes his bag and storms into the club where Jenny is being held. At the same time, Dodge gets a call, realizing what Levon has done. He rallies his men, planning to eliminate Levon at the club. Inside, Artie is with Garrett, taking Jenny to the room where she's tied up. Garrett moves in to punish her for hurting him, but suddenly, an explosion rocks the club. Levon set it off. Chaos erupts as Levon cuts through Demi's men with expert precision. The terrified patrons flee as Dodge and his men arrive, only to face Levon head-on. In a brutal, fast-paced fight, Levon defeats Dodge, leaving him dead before rushing to Jenny's side. He bursts into her room just as Garrett fires at him. Levon doesn't hesitate and takes him down. Then he corners Viper, fighting until she dies in his hands. Jenny, seeing her chance, fights back fiercely, subduing Artie until she's gone for good. Meanwhile, Annister and Zifi arrive with their corrupt police backup. Without hesitation, they open fire on Levon, blowing up a car outside the club. Levon, quick thinking as ever, uses a sniper camera to take down Zifi, then throws a grenade to eliminate Annister. Finally, he grabs Jenny, and they escape on a motorcycle, weaving through chaos. Simon sees them flee and calls the Mafia boss, but Levon and Jenny are already gone. The Mafia boss realizes their personal vendetta can't interfere with the bigger picture. Simon is forced to accept it. The next day, Levon arrives at Jenny's family home. Her parents are stunned, but quickly embrace her, grateful and relieved. They thank Levon for everything he's done. With the mission finally over, Levon returns to his daughter, Mary, and his friend Johnny's family. They share a peaceful meal together, surrounded by love and safety, a rare moment of true happiness after everything they've been through.